To her tireless efforts, so many women's lives have been protected and will be protected in the future. The mother of two exposed the cervical check scandal in 2018 after refusing to sign a confidentiality agreement in a court settlement against an American test lab. Dr. Gabriel Scally led a scoping inquiry into the scandal and says Vicky was determined to get to the truth.
And she managed somehow to combine that warmth and caring with a steely determination to get what was right and just, and particularly around openness and honesty, and get change. She was driven by change.
10,000 jobs are set to be slashed at Amazon, according to reports in the US. The New York Times is reporting cuts in retail, human resources and at the unit which supplies the smart speaker Alexa. Amazon employs around 5,000 people in Ireland, and it's not known how many jobs will be impacted. A Garda remains in a serious but stable condition in hospital after a crash in County Cork yesterday. Their unmarked Garda car was hit while they were assisting a broken down vehicle on the N25 Youghal bypass yesterday evening. Garda are appealing for witnesses to the crash to come forward. In particular, they want to speak to any driver who may have seen the broken down car and the unmarked Garda car between 20 to 7 and 7 o'clock yesterday evening. And Men's Aid says the stigma facing male victims of domestic violence is slowly weakening as more survivors come forward. Demand for the charity support line was up 37% last year, with callers ranging in age from 18 to 88. It received over 7,500 calls last year. CEO of Men's Aid, Katrina Bentley, says it's encouraging to see more men coming forward for support.
It's a stark figure, and sadly we know it's only the tip of the iceberg, but I think it really is welcomed because it does show that men are finding the confidence, they're feeling encouraged to pick up the phone and to speak with Men's Aid.
And that's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Sick of cold weather already? Get sun in Gran Canaria, Lanzarote or Tenerife.
Wet and windy for most tonight. Lowest temperatures varying from 1 to 6 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo.
This is News Talk.
Now you're welcome along. Monday evenings Off the Ball, Joe Molloy here. So 6 days out from a World Cup and a Cristiano Ronaldo, Piers Morgan bonanza is dominating. Shame on us all. We will contribute further, I'm afraid, though. Mark Critchley of The Independent is with us. Pat Nevin is along on the football show. Gordon Darcy and Rory O'Connor, happy to say, with us on Monday Night Rugby. Text number, as ever, 53106. Do get in touch. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Michael McCarthy here in studio. Hello.
How are you, Joe?
Richie McCormack, hello.
Evening, young man.
Betrayed, Richie. I feel betrayed.
What did I do now?
No, listen, I'm just mimicking Ronaldo and whatever way he's managed to.
You'd be the sort, to be fair, Joe.
In his head.
You'd be the sort.
Listen, I would go on Piers Morgan to air my grievances if he'd have me.
I think we've got more listeners than Piers Morgan has viewers, though, to be fair, Joe.
Well, this is the interesting thing. I've seen Morgan hit with this. Look, don't ask me why. I have a certain fascination with him, and maybe it's the media aspect as well. But I was reading his Sunday Times diary yesterday. It was in the Sunday Times magazine where he was talking about behind his new show, behind the scenes type diary. And to be fair, they were all rather disappointed with the viewing figures themselves. But then they have found, I wouldn't say to their shock, but you know, they've been pleasantly surprised maybe at the extent to which this thing has been picked up online. So for instance, the Kanye West thing, bazillion views. Jordan Peterson just the other week had like 20 million views. Trump a gazillion views. So they've almost
seen a pattern here, by the way.
Yes, interesting.
Oh, he's got a type, like yeah. You know. Yeah.
But they're struck by the fact that actually the television channel, which is very hard to remember the name of, I just can't. UK Talk TV, something Talk. Is they realise actually it's an internet show. The TV channel is an irrelevance. So I would think on Wednesday when this 90-minute bonanza does air on YouTube for free, it'll have 20-30 million views by the end of the week, I suppose. 90 minutes of it. I mean, I'm kind of curious. It can't just be a petulant rant for 90 minutes. Or can it?
I'd say he was given the platform for it anyway.
I'd say it was favourable. I don't know if you watched his Kanye West interview.
Just clips.
Better things to do with my time, Joe.
Yeah, I watched the full hour of it because I was genuinely interested to see Ye.
Yeah, go on, yeah, keep going.
In long form.
Yeah.
To get a genuine sense of, frankly, his mental health, his mental state. And it was, there is something about him in long form which was very illuminating.
Yeah.
But to be fair to Piers Morgan, gonna let that
go on. Yeah,
there.
Keep going, Joe. I've had my fill of it already, and it's 6 minutes past 7.
He was incredibly combative in that interview, and there was constant clashes in that interview. And I guess, to be fair, against Trump as well, he held him to account in a way that lots of journalists don't. It's not to say Trump's a difficult man to hold to account, really. You have plenty of ammunition. But I suspect this Ronaldo interview will be far more favourable.
Soft.
Yeah.
I
would think
Cristiano Ronaldo, Trump, Kanye West, Piers Morgan himself, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
All have an incredible ability to make everything about themselves in a way that's like, it's, I don't want to say like narcissistic or anything, but I do feel that there's a issue with people who have their entire life is about their place in it, and the whole world revolves around them so much that I feel that just you lose all sense of reality and perspective eventually. And I think this Ronaldo interview, like, you have to say, is so off the deep end mad that he could think that this is a normal thing to do to quote unquote defend himself. But like, surely it comes from the fact that since this guy's been a child, the entire world has been about how great Cristiano Ronaldo is or can be.
Yeah.
I'm reading like amateur psychology isn't probably what people need right now from this, but it's all I can think about. I can just think about it. So what drives someone to become so self-obsessed that they think that this is a normal way to behave?
Oh, I suppose the extraordinary level of fame and how that changes you from the age of 17, 18 to now. I mean, extraordinary level of fame. That's an aspect. I think he's also doing this interview to blow up the relationship once and for all. He wanted it in the summer. Manchester United, for them, like for United, there was a financial component to this. We paid a transfer fee for you. We've paid you obscene wages. We're not just letting you go. You do have time left in your contract. So they wanted money for him, and most right-thinking clubs looked at him to pay money up front to United, his gargantuan wages, and then dealing with the ticking time bomb that is the raging against the light of Ronaldo, as his aging limbs confront everyone in a very real way. And most clubs said no way. So I think Ronaldo here, perfect timing, even the World Cup, he never has to walk back into the dressing room to face the music.
Do you think he cleared out his locker?
Potentially. I think he has done this so Manchester United are forced into saying, right, a la Roy Keane all those years ago, the contract's over, you can go.
Yeah, maybe.
So I think there's a logic there, but I also think you're right. I think there is a misguided sense of grievance there as well.
That's it. Yeah, no, he 100% believes this, and he believes it every time he's sitting on the bench, that this is, instead of a football decision that even might be wrong, it's a personal vendetta, dig, personal reasons that he is there sitting on the bench, and it's because a manager doesn't like him personally, or because he's trying to make a point, or he's trying to own the dressing room, whatever it might be. Ronaldo never thinks that maybe this isn't the game for me, or maybe he's making a decision based on wanting to win. Again, and I think it all comes back to the same thing, really. It just comes back to this clouded view of reality.
I think he made certain valid points. Now, he shouldn't have made them publicly, but he made valid points. He said, Ralph Rangnick, I'd never heard of him. Why was he anywhere near Manchester United? 100% true.
Yeah.
He talked about the stagnation at the club.
Yeah.
So he said, nothing has changed. He said, surprisingly. Now, he picked some odd examples. I mean, I would think the kitchen staff are thinking, whoa!
Why do you need to sack kitchen staff and move on?
He does mention that one of the chefs is a nice person.
He
so
does.
At least he does cover his arse somewhat there.
Somewhat. But he said,
like the
pool,
nuts and bolts and the kind of the hardware stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's all pretty valid. And I think anybody would point towards that and say, yeah. But you don't do it in a sit-down interview with Piers Morgan where the headline is, I'm betrayed. Me. I, on my 600 grand a week, have been mistreated by this institution somehow. It's narcissistic and bordering on cretinous, to be honest.
But Richie makes that point, though. It's like the stagnation isn't the problem for Manchester United. The stagnation is like, you told me to come back here, and look at the state of this. All the valid points are still wrapped up in how it's a personal insult to Cristiano Ronaldo.
You know, I politely disagree a touch with that. I think it's really valid to point out what a disgrace Manchester United has been. So I think when he says, okay, it's the pool and the jacuzzi, that was the wrong way to lead. But when he talks about the gym hasn't changed, any of the technologies at the club, the infrastructure, because he does, and this has been less reported, but he does have the wherewithal to say at the end of this rant about, you know, since Ferguson has left, I haven't seen an evolution at the club. Progress is zero. He does finish that by saying, you have to tear it down and rebuild it. If they start with me, not a problem. So I think there is an acknowledgement.
He had the chance to do that. He had the chance to recce this a year ago, though. Like that's what gets lost in all this. He was brought in. When you're brought in as a signing, like most signings would be, like when he was a teenager being brought to the club, he would have been shown around going, this is the gym, this is the jacuzzi, this is the pool, and you go, grand, yeah. You would have looked around then and decided, actually, do you know what? At this stage of my career, I probably don't need to be taking a step backwards. And he took that on himself. Yeah. All of this is on him. Like, his aging body is on him, because that's just what age does to people.
Yeah, he probably did assume they had kicked on. But then he walked into the kitchen and saw Greg was still there. What?
But he was there. He was a part of that team last year. So whether they wanted him out then, and whether all the vendetta started early, as he's, like alluding to, at least in the clip that I saw, whether that's the case or not, he was there leading the line, scored a few goals, fine. Their record was terrible. They were lucky to finish sixth last season. Like, very lucky. I think people would agree. I don't know why West Ham didn't even pass them out at the end. They were so poor at the end of the season, right? Not in the Champions League. He's as at fault for that as anybody else. The idea that he's not a part of this, and then he demands out straight away. It's like, oh, my big comeback didn't work out, I'm not in the Champions League, I want out. So he spent the whole summer completely raining on Ten Hag's parade. Any kind of momentum that Ten Hag was going to have as the new manager was overshadowed by the Cristiano Ronaldo show. And then he has the temerity to come and blame it all, since having walked out in the team twice already up until before this.
I think that's so interesting, and I totally agree with you. This man apart syndrome, which really weirdly has been furthered in the media by Roy Keane, Rio Ferdinand, a few others, where they're like in raging rows on television saying things like 18 goals over and over again, 18 goals. And like the reality of the 18 goals in the league, one, like, I mean, he'd hammer in a hat-trick against Norwich and then not score for a month and a half. And he would stand there like this horrible Machiavellian presence behind Bruno Fernandes taking penalties, willing him to miss so he could take over penalties the second Bruno missed. And he did that. And so he took penalties as well. Fernandes' form goes down the toilet. And yet it's this, he's a man apart. You know, he's not to blame for any of this.
He demands the captaincy off Harry Maguire, who's struggling for form and his confidence is in the toilet. And Ronaldo's answer is, get the captaincy off that guy, give it to me.
No. So I don't know. It's all very, very grim. And it's just amazing the extent to which
I find it funny
6 days out from World Cup,
because I don't care about Manchester United or Cristiano Ronaldo, and it's like, and the whole thing is like, you can't, like, there's a party that wants to be angry at this because of how disgraceful it is that in a team sport he's doing this. But there's another part of it that's very funny.
We should kick on. The Newsround is brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. So, Richie, the fallout from Fiji, not good on the injury front.
No, it ain't. No. Robbie Henshaw and Joey Carberry will miss Saturday's test with Australia. Henshaw will rehab back at Leinster, having suffered a hamstring injury in that win. It was just 4 minutes, though, he lasted during the game. Carberry is observing the return to play protocols back at Munster, having been removed against Fiji for a HIA. Jonathan Sexton, James Ryan, Andrew Porter, Josh van der Flaar and Hugo Keenan will all have knocks assessed this week. And here's a reminder of Andy Farrell's assessment of that Fiji win.
For us, as far as the performance is concerned, pretty underwhelming. I suppose when you look back and you analyse a performance like that, you'll get plenty of learnings out of it. But for Fiji, being down to 13 men, obviously with a red card and a couple of yellow cards, and you know, the penalty count being 14-10 in our favour, we should have been a lot more clinical than we was, and I think that's the moral of the story. Really, we got into the 22 time and time again, and yes, because of illegalities or stop-start nature, we lost our flow, etc. But we wasn't clinical enough by any stretch of the imagination.
hard not to feel very sorry, Rich, for Joey Carberry. Every chance he may have started against Australia, potentially, I don't know, or certainly got more game time. And it was very striking. Vern Cotter, after, was asked about Albert Tuisu's headshot on Carberry, and he has been cited, by the way, Tuisu. And Cotter's response was there foul play? What's the question? Is there a head? I don't know.
I think that's just a reaction from a losing coach who probably hasn't seen the incident.
Maybe, yeah.
I wouldn't read too much into it. It does come across as slightly disrespectful in the aftermath, but for Carberry, like, you do get the sense the time is running out a little bit, and I don't mean just this year. I mean, it's like, I made the comparison on TV, probably misguidedly the other morning. It kind of reminds me of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles. Like, Prince Charles is looking at his ma thinking, I'm going to be king someday, and he has to wait until he's on the verge of 74 until that happens. And there's an element of that with Carberry, is that by the time he does actually, if he does at all get the throne in terms of the number 10 shirt, there's others catching up with him who are probably going to be as worthy, if not more worthy, by the time he does take it. Now, we'll get to an injury to one of them in a couple of minutes, but I don't know if it's the injuries that he's had. I don't know if it's a stuttering lack of game time. I don't know if it's being in a less than brilliant Munster side for the past couple of years, or if it's a confluence of all of those factors. But it doesn't look as if he's going to be the guy I think a lot of people would have presumed he would be at this stage in his career. Some of it is on him, a lot of it isn't. But it's a difficult watch to see somebody lose their grip like that, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
I do too, actually. Yeah, I think that it's a pity. And he's had awful injuries, like, consistently and always at the wrong time. But at the same time, I do think we have to take Joey Carberry off the automatic successor to the throne, state that we've kind of been in forever at this stage, I would say, and just make sure that we are, like, as everybody watching the game, and I presume as coaches, are looking at the full picture and not just assuming that we have the number 2 guy in place, So anyway, that's what I would just slightly disagree on what Richie said about Vern Cotter there, and I think no matter who you're coaching, I think, like, this isn't going to change if we're constantly complaining about these decisions being made just because it happened against you.
He would certainly have seen numerous replays on the screen in front of him in the coach's box, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
He can't Arsene Wenger his way out of that one.
Like, again, look, I mean, it's easy for us to say if it was an Irish player who was sent off, would we be saying the same thing? Maybe would we expect Andy Farrell to do so? No, I'm saying, would we be saying the same thing, as in, would we be saying, yeah, red card, you have to take it out of the game, but would we expect Andy Farrell to do so? I'm not so sure. But at the same time, I'd like to think that we have to just get to a point where we're not yaying or saying, oh, look, I don't know about that, that cost us the game, as opposed to that cost Joey Carberry.
Yeah, no, I think I'd expect Farrell to a headshot like that, and it's an awful photo in the Sunday Times yesterday of Carberry's head going back and the saliva going from his mouth, almost like a boxer. And he's put out of the game. He's put out of the sport for I don't know how long. It's really shocking. So some texts in. Cristiano is correct. Totally disrespected. He's only on a fixed wage with Manchester United, which wouldn't link to inflation. That was fine in August 2021. What's 600k worth in 2022? Con and Limerick. A fair point. None of us have worked that into the analysis, Con. I think what's really eating Ronaldo is Messi is where he wants to be. That easy life at PSG, padding out the stats, a few more medals guaranteed, Champions League football, Messi only 15 goals behind Ronaldo's European goals record. What a brilliant text that is. I think there may be something in that. And somebody else says, United's performances show they're better without him in the team. Do you think he gives a damn about the state of United, whether it's the gym or another issue? It's only a stick to beat United with. He only cares about himself. He's the personification of all that's bad about football, says Jim.
Good text, Jim.
By
the way, United
are calibre text on a Monday evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is the subject that's bringing out the texters. United are absolutely better off with him out of the team, because even last Sunday, when I'm like a little bit wary about Unai Emery's first game in charge, and I see the team, it wasn't even Donny van de Beek that stuck out to me. It was Ronaldo up top. When you're checking like a half an hour before kickoff, I was delighted, and that was an instinctual thing. That wasn't like me, thinking Ronaldo's finished. It was just like, this is good. This is what we need. Be able to play out the back a little bit, and 100% worked out. He didn't kick a ball.
Okay. World Rugby nominees announced. Richie, Ireland just bloody good at rugby.
I know, it seems so, yeah. Farrell has had good news today. 2 players receiving World Rugby nominations. Jonathan Sexton and Josh van der Flier up for Player of the Year, along with France scrum half Antoine Dupont and Springbok centre Lecanio Am. Farrell is shortlisted for the World Coach of the Year, along with his French counterpart Fabien Galtier. New Zealand's Women's World Cup winning coach on the weekend, Wayne Smith, and England Women's head coach Simon Middleton. Meanwhile, Mac Hansen and Dan Sheehan are up for the Breakthrough Men's Player of the Year. Ireland have nominees elsewhere, with Linda Dugang's try against Wales during the Six Nations among the Women's Try of the Year nominees. Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe is on the 4-woman shortlist for Women's 7 Player of the Year, and Terry Kennedy is up for Men's 7th Player of the Year. So we are pretty good.
Yeah, not bad. Rory O'Connor on Monday Night Rugby, he thinks Van der Flier will hold off Sexton, hold off Dupont, hold off Am, and win World Player of the Year. So that would be Keith Wood, Johnny Sexton, Van der Flier at the end.
In the lead up to the Springboks test, he got singled out for very high praise from the box journalists and the coaches. Yeah. They knew what was coming their way when Van der Flier was playing in that test. Like you're talking about, there was 2 players highlighted by them, and obviously Sexton was going to be one of them, and Van der Flier was the other. And they were the only 2 really, I think, from memory, in those. I think it was Nienaber and a separate one with Erasmus, where they're asked about them, and those are the 2 players from South African journalists that are getting highlighted. So
it's
I don't think this
interesting.
is too much.
I almost assume he's like unheralded. He's the European Player of the Year.
I know.
Other countries.
And look, we've talked about it before, how far he's gone. We talked about it just last Monday, I think, after the Springboks match, and it's rightly and should be said again and again about Josh van der Flier. I'd pick Sexton. I don't know. Every time I watch an Ireland match here, I always think it's like you're going for who's the second best player here today. Yeah. You know, and that's the player we talk about. We'll be talking about Caelan Doris one day, or Van der Flier another, or Hugo Keenan or whatever. But they're always Sexton's always more important in the game than them. No matter how well they play.
Not to talk down Van der Flier, I'd almost pick Sexton as well.
He's outstanding. Yeah. Like I still laugh now, and you have to the idea that he wasn't brought in the Lions tour last year. I swear to God, it makes me laugh hysterically.
I thought you were going to say really angry.
No, it's ludicrous. It's absolutely insane. But it was insane at the time, regardless what people say about the form at the time. But what he's done since has just made Warren Gatland look like I won't say what.
Richie, we might skip on. I know you've Ronaldo there. Let's skip on by that. Louise Quinn.
Yeah, Louise Quinn marked her 100th cap for the Republic of Ireland with a goal this evening. The Birmingham City defender scored the 3rd in a 4-0 win over Morocco in Marbella. Megan Campbell opened the scoring after just 2 minutes. Katie McCabe slotted a penalty home 6 minutes after that. And in the dying embers of the game in Marbella as well, Kyra Carusa scored the 4th. So a comfortable victory for Vera Pauw's side. She put out a pretty strong starting 11 this evening as well.
FAI Cup final?
Yeah, the FAI say they're liaising with both Shelbourne and Derry City following a number of incidents around yesterday's final. 8 arrests were made due to a pre-match disturbance in Ringsend when a fight broke out, seemingly among Shells fans in the Aviva South stand during the game as well. Derry won the match by 4-0 to claim their first FAI Cup in a decade. Cameron McJanet scored twice for the Candy Stripes, and Derry boss Rory Higgins says they watched that recent Derry City Different League documentary on their way down to Dublin.
It's interesting that you mentioned that documentary, because we stopped the morning for a cup of tea halfway down, and when we got back onto the bus we stuck it on, so the people that didn't watch it could see the history of the club, I suppose, and we always try and educate them anyway on the history of the club, but it gives them an opportunity to see it for themselves. And we tried to play on that a bit this weekend, and you're right, the potential's vast. But again, as I said, next year there'll be more expectation. I have to deal with that. The players have to deal with it, and so be it. It's great, and hopefully this can be a bit of a springboard for us. We can't take anything for granted. We have to chip away in the background and make everything better and improve standards around the place, on and off the pitch, and let's see what we can turn the place into.
Rich, in advance of this final, there were competing previews. On the one hand, these two sides had played each other 4 times, and there was only 1 goal aggregate in the difference. Shells had beaten Derry, there'd been a draw, there'd been 2 Derry wins. On the other hand, there was a 25-point gap in the table. It was more the latter we saw on evidence.
Yeah, it was, and it was a win that both sides needed it for different reasons. It would have been a brilliant feather in the cap for Damien Duff, obviously enough in his first year of management, full stop. To get to a cup final is brilliant in itself. To win a trophy would have been just remarkable, particularly with that squad. But as I mentioned, the difference in the squads was there for all to see yesterday. And Derry, despite the fact that they kind of stumbled towards the end of the season in the league and let their challenge to Shamrock Rovers fall away at their own hand, really put in a performance worthy of, I guess, showing that they're going to be that team to take the step up, and they're going to be the ones to challenge Rovers in the next year or two, because they've got the budget to do it. They seemingly have the manager to do it. They've got the basis of a squad to do it, which they will add to, I would imagine, in these coming weeks as well between seasons. So yeah, I think we saw a Shelbourne who finished 6th in the league, and a Derry City who finished as title challengers.
They were 7th in the league, because I know that, because every time I checked the league table for the entire season, they were in 7th.
Who were they below again? That's right.
But they were in 7th. I've never seen anything like it. They were in 7th from like week 1 until the very last day. Sometimes they had like 10 points either side of them. They were they were the most maroon team I've ever seen in a table.
That middle of the table crystallised fairly early on the season, because you had Harps and UCD battling it out against the drop, and then Rovers and Derry and the others kind of in and around European positions, and ourselves and Shells were basically playing hopscotch for weeks upon weeks. But yeah, I don't think the result should be a surprise to anybody kind of aware of the differences between the sides. But it's important that Duff builds on this and doesn't kind of get downhearted by it.
Andy Friend is departing Connacht.
He is, yeah, a bit of a surprise this. The Connacht director of rugby has announced that he's leaving the province at the end of this season. It's his 5th at the club, having initially joined as head coach. He's now director of rugby with Pete Wilkins as head coach. Friend guided Connacht to the knockout phase of the Heineken Champions Cup for the first time last season before taking on his current role. Connacht CEO Willie Ruan said today that they were aware that this season will be Friend's last when he signed his 2021 contract extension.
Okay. I think the move to director of rugby signalled this. So it's been 5 years, and it's a segue in a way. Meanwhile, desperately bad news for Kieran Frawley. This is going to be months, not weeks.
Yeah, Leinster say Kieran Frawley will be out for a number of months. He picked up a knee injury in the recent Ireland A defeat to the All Blacks 15 at the RDS. It was a twisted knee at the time, and Leinster say he requires a minor procedure on that tomorrow. Meanwhile, flanker Martin Maloney, it's even worse for him. He's going to miss the rest of this season. He has picked up an ACL injury.
Okay. One last story we might touch on. So we are 6 days out from the World Cup. Teams are arriving in Qatar. We're already starting to see some, I don't know, do we call them protests of a kind? But certainly some stands, I guess, yeah.
The USA are one of those. They've put up rainbow flags at their World Cup training base in Qatar. Team badge has rainbow elements incorporated as well, so the stripes that you see underneath the USA are all in rainbow colours. Same-sex relationships can be punishable by death in the Gulf state, which insists that all fans are welcome. The move by the Americans is part of their Be the Change programme, which promotes social justice for all. Hugo Lloris, though, the French captain and goalkeeper, is speaking out today, says he won't be making any such marks and no rainbow armbands from him, as he wants to respect, I guess, he says, the host nation.
Okay, interesting. I mean, ultimately, and you would applaud the US team, it's very admirable. Ultimately, what's really become apparent over the last number of months, and certainly weeks, is Qatar don't care. This isn't a sports washing project. They had no reputation to launder in the first place. This is an exercise in power. So if you think rainbow flags or armbands are bothering us at all, we don't care. This is just a naked show of power. We are a powerful country on the world stage. We've loads of money. We own half of the UK. We have all the oil. What are you going to do? Wave your flag?
I'm depressed enough as it is, for God's sake.
I think,
even stuff like today, like more obvious of that point was Budweiser, who are clearly, and anybody who's seen the FIFA documentary saw what a big deal Sepp Blatter made of getting commercial partners on board, and ones of the size of Coca-Cola and Budweiser. Budweiser's, I think they had tents out in public parks, or the fan parks that were going to be there in Qatar, have to be hidden away now. And what are Budweiser going to say? Or what are FIFA going to say? Qatar are just there going, we got the World Cup now.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Oh, totally. And again, it's very admirable to take those stands, but it matters.
That's what I think as well. I heard that USA news, and I'm like, what's the point? And that's terrible, because that is all they can do. Yeah. And fair play to them for doing it, and there's no reason for me to be dismissive of it, but it was just, I can't help it. It's just, what is the point? What's it doing for anyone?
I mean,
World Cup shouldn't be there.
It's a good thing, but it doesn't get to the heart of the matter. Yeah. We are pretty much out of time. So, Michael, thank you. Richie, thank you very much.
Nice, lads.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Now, somebody missed Barry's call today, so roll over to start the week if you've